I'll create all 14 chapters based on the length of Chapter 1, writing them in sequence so you can copy everything at once. Two teenagers walk down a small-town street lined with cheering neighbors, confetti raining down around them. Baseball trophies glint in their hands. Smiles stretch across their faces. 17-year-old Jason and 16-year-old Michael are hometown heroes, the pride of Millfield Valley. By nightfall, they would vanish without a trace, leaving behind nothing but questions that would haunt this community for nearly 3 decades. Before we dive into this mystery, please like, subscribe to the channel, and comment on what you think happened. Your opinion could be the key to understanding this story. May 15th, 1993. The air in Millfield Valley smelled of freshly cut grass and barbecue smoke. American flags fluttered from front porches. The regional championship parade wound through Main Street, where the brothers rode atop a decorated fire truck, their red and gold baseball jerseys gleaming in the late afternoon sun. They were the Golden Boys, recalls Sarah Mitchell, their former English teacher. Jason was the serious one, straight-A student with college scouts already knocking. Michael was the charmer, could make anyone laugh even during a tense game. The brothers waved to the crowd as the parade reached its end at Millfield Community Park. The town's population of just under 5,000 had seemingly all turned out. Parents took photos with disposable cameras. Children collected candy thrown from floats. The local newspaper photographer captured what would become the last known image of Jason and Michael together. Arms around each other's shoulders, championship medals dangling from their necks, their future stretching endlessly before them. I remember the sound of the band playing our school fight song, says Emma Collins, a classmate who attended the celebration. The air horn from the fire truck, people clapping. It was the happiest day in town that I can remember. How could we know it would end in a nightmare? At 9:47 p.m., the brothers' mother, Patricia, called the police. Her voice trembled as she reported that her sons hadn't returned home. They had last been seen leaving the community center around 6:30 p.m., telling friends they needed to take care of something before heading home. But what was that something? And why didn't they tell anyone where they were going? The search began immediately. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness as volunteers combed the woods surrounding Millfield. Police officers checked abandoned buildings. The fire department deployed boats to search the lake, where the team often swam during summer months. But as dawn broke over the valley, bringing with it a heavy morning mist, the brothers remained gone, 2 gaping holes in the fabric of the close-knit community. It was like they just evaporated, says former Sheriff Robert Thompson, who led the initial investigation. No signs of struggle, no witnesses who saw anything unusual. Their car wasn't missing, their bank accounts untouched. 2 teenage boys don't just disappear without leaving some kind of trace, but they did. And as days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, the investigation hit dead end after dead end. The case that began with an entire town's determination to find their missing sons gradually cooled until it lay dormant. An unsolved mystery that would define Millfield Valley for the next 28 years. But what really happened to Jason and Michael that spring evening? What secret could have pulled them away from their moment of triumph? Sometimes the deepest buried secrets don't stay buried forever. Summer 2021. The unrelenting sun beat down on Millfield Valley for the 63rd consecutive day without rain. Cracked earth stretched across once lush farmland. Residents rationed water. The local news called it the worst drought in 50 years. But sometimes, nature's cruelty has a way of unearthing long-hidden truths. Eleanor Matthews wiped sweat from her brow as she surveyed her struggling crops. At 42, she had invested her life savings in this 30-acre property just 18 months earlier, leaving behind a corporate career in Seattle to pursue her dream of sustainable farming. The property had belonged to Harold Jenkins, a reclusive collector who died in 2016, leaving behind no family and a property that sat vacant for years. I knew farming wouldn't be easy, Eleanor later told investigators, but I never expected it would lead me to something like this. The well that supplied water to her crops was running dry. Each day, the water level dropped another few inches. Eleanor had no choice but to dig deeper, a costly endeavor that would strain her already tight finances. The drilling equipment arrived on a Tuesday morning, the metal exterior so hot from the sun that it burned to touch. The operator, a weathered man named Frank, had been drilling wells in Millfield Valley for over 30 years. I remember Frank saying something odd as they began work, Eleanor recalls. He mentioned that old Harold never let anyone dig on the northwest corner of the property. Always said it was because of unstable soil, but Frank never bought that explanation. As the drill bit pierced the parched earth, creating a cloud of dust that hung in the still air, no one expected what would happen next. At 12 feet down, the drill hit something solid. Metal, not rock. The hollow sound reverberated up through the equipment. Frank shut everything down immediately, says Eleanor. His face went white. He said, "In 40 years of drilling, I've never hit anything man-made this far from a structure." Using smaller equipment, they carefully excavated around the obstruction. By late afternoon, they had uncovered what appeared to be a hatch, a flat metal door with a spinning wheel lock, like something from a submarine or bomb shelter. The metal showed no rust, despite years underground. Someone had taken great care to protect whatever lay beneath. "I remember the sound when we turned that wheel," Eleanor says, her voice dropping to just above a whisper. The seal breaking, the hiss of air escaping. It smelled preserved, like time itself had been locked away. As the hatch swung open, revealing a metal ladder descending into darkness, Eleanor faced a choice: call the authorities immediately or satisfy her curiosity about what lay below. She chose the latter, a decision that would resurrect a 28-year-old mystery and change countless lives, including her own. What lay at the bottom of that ladder? And what connection could it possibly have to two teenage boys who vanished decades earlier? The truth, as Eleanor was about to discover, was more meticulously preserved than anyone could have imagined. The beam from Eleanor's flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a concrete passageway leading to a heavy steel door. The air grew cooler as she descended, a stark contrast to the scorching heat above. The metal rungs of the ladder felt cold beneath her calloused hands. Each step took her further from the world she knew and closer to a carefully constructed secret. "I should have been scared," Eleanor later admitted, "but curiosity has always been my downfall." When she reached the bottom, about 15 feet below ground, she noticed something odd: the gentle hum of electricity. Someone had built this place with its own power supply, one that had continued functioning long after being abandoned. The steel door swung open with surprising ease, revealing a space approximately 20 feet square. What Eleanor saw inside stopped her breath. This was no ordinary bunker or storm shelter. This was a shrine. The walls were lined with climate-controlled glass cases, each illuminated by soft LED lighting. Inside these cases, baseball jerseys, carefully preserved newspaper clippings, photographs, trophies, and personal items arranged with museum-like precision. 2 championship medals hung in the center display, the red ribbons still vibrant despite the passage of time. "The first thing I noticed were the names," Eleanor recalls. Jason and Michael, the same names that were on the memorial scholarship plaque at the high school where I'd volunteered last fall. For anyone who had lived in Millfield Valley more than a few years, those names carried weight. The brothers' disappearance had become local legend, the kind of story parents used to warn teenagers about staying out too late, the kind of mystery that amateur sleuths still discussed over coffee at the local diner. As Eleanor moved deeper into the bunker, the displays became more disturbing. One case contained newspaper clippings about the search for the missing brothers. Another held what appeared to be personal journals. But most unsettling was a wall covered with maps, photographs, and handwritten notes connected by red string, the kind of conspiracy board seen in detective movies. The handwriting was obsessive, meticulous, Eleanor says. Whoever created this place wasn't just preserving memories. They were documenting something, or maybe hiding evidence. In the corner sat an old desk with a locked drawer. Eleanor, her heart pounding against her ribs, used a paperclip from a nearby stack of documents to jimmy it open. Inside, a single envelope addressed to whoever finds this place. The letter inside consisted of just one sentence. The truth about Jason and Michael is bigger than you can imagine. There was no signature. Eleanor's phone had no signal this far underground. As she turned to leave, to climb back up and call the police, her flashlight beam caught something she had missed, a small red button beneath the desk. Without thinking, she pressed it. A previously hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a smaller room beyond, and with it, a secret that would shake Millfield Valley to its core. What had Eleanor stumbled upon? And who had gone to such extraordinary lengths to preserve this underground archive of two missing teenagers? The bunker had kept its secrets for nearly 3 decades. Now, they were about to be exposed to the light of day. The call came in to the Millfield Valley Police Department at 6:42 p.m. Eleanor Matthews, voice shaking, reported finding an underground bunker containing items related to the missing brothers. Detective Carlos Martinez was just preparing to leave for the day when the dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. At 59, with retirement just months away, Martinez had been a rookie officer when the brothers vanished in 1993. "I never forgot their faces," Martinez would later tell reporters. "Every missing persons case since then, I'd catch myself comparing it to the brothers. It was the case that haunted me." The detective's Crown Victoria kicked up dust as it raced down the rural access road to Eleanor's farm. The evening sun cast long shadows across the drought-stricken fields. Martinez hadn't moved this fast in years, but some cases grip an officer's soul and never let go. This was his. By the time Martinez arrived, Eleanor had placed police tape around the bunker entrance. The detective's knees cracked as he knelt to examine the hatch. Even before descending, he could tell this was no ordinary discovery. The craftsmanship of the entrance alone, Martinez notes, suggested someone with resources and technical knowledge. This wasn't some hastily constructed hiding place. This was built to last decades. Inside the bunker, Martinez moved methodically, his experienced eyes cataloging every detail. The jerseys, preserved in vacuum-sealed cases, still bore the dirt stains from the championship game. The newspaper clippings, arranged chronologically, told the story of the initial disappearance, the fruitless searches, the gradual loss of hope. But it was the annotated notes in the margins that sent a chill down his spine. Not an accident. They knew too much. T is the key. Whoever built this place wasn't just a collector or some obsessed true crime fan, Martinez observed. They were either involved in the disappearance or knew who was. In the hidden room Eleanor had discovered, Martinez found something even more significant. Hundreds of vintage baseball cards stored in specialized protective cases. At first glance, they appeared to be valuable collectibles. But Martinez's trained eye noticed inconsistencies in some of the prints, subtle differences that suggested counterfeits. "I remember a case from around that time," Martinez said, his voice barely above a whisper. "A counterfeiting ring operating in the county. We never made any arrests. The investigation mysteriously shut down." As night fell, the bunker was illuminated by police floodlights. Forensic teams cataloged every item. Eleanor watched from beyond the police tape, wondering what forces she had set in motion by making that call. Martinez's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he hadn't seen in years. Sophia Reynolds, the missing brother's younger sister, now a journalist in Chicago. "News travels fast," Martinez said as he answered. "Is it true?" Sophia's voice cracked with emotion. "After all these years, did someone find something about my brothers?" How did Sophia know about the discovery so quickly? And why had the sheriff from 1993, now retired in Florida, already called Martinez 3 times since the bunker was found? The discovery wasn't just resurrecting an old case, it was awakening long-dormant connections and stirring up secrets some people had spent decades trying to bury. The wheels of Sophia Reynolds's rental car crunched on the gravel driveway of her childhood home. At 41, she hadn't set foot in Millfield Valley for nearly 5 years, not since her father's funeral. Now, the discovery in Eleanor's field had pulled her back like a magnet, forcing her to confront the tragedy that shaped her entire life. Coming back is always like stepping into a time machine, Sophia told her podcast listeners in a raw, unedited recording she made that night. The town gets smaller, the memories get larger. The modest 2-story house looked exactly as it had when she was 13, the year her brothers disappeared. The porch swing where they'd spend summer evenings. The basketball hoop where Jason had taught her to shoot. The flower bed where her mother had channeled her grief into gardening after the boys were gone. Patricia Reynolds, now 73, stood in the doorway, her silhouette backlit by the warm glow from inside. The years had bent her frame, but not her spirit. When she embraced her daughter, both women held on a beat too long, the weight of renewed hope and fear pressing down on them. "They found something, Mom," Sophia whispered. "After all this time, they found something." Inside, the living room remained a subtle shrine to the missing brothers. Team photos on the mantel, trophies in a cabinet, 2 empty chairs at the dining table that never got removed, as if setting places for ghosts. Sophia had built her career as an investigative journalist on the foundation of her personal tragedy, specializing in cold cases and unsolved disappearances. Her podcast, Still Missing, had helped solve 3 long-dormant cases across the country, but never her own family's mystery. "I need to see it," Sophia insisted, spreading newspaper clippings across the coffee table. Her own collection, different from the ones found in the bunker. "I need to see everything they found." Patricia handed her daughter a cup of tea that would go untouched. "Detective Martinez said they're processing the scene. No visitors yet." Her hands trembled slightly. "But he mentioned something strange. Baseball cards. High-value ones. Does that mean anything to you?" A memory flickered in Sophia's mind. A conversation overheard the week before her brothers vanished. Michael's excited voice. "These could be worth a fortune someday." Jason's more cautious response. "We need to tell someone about this." The doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. Eleanor Matthews stood on the porch, shifting uncomfortably from one foot to another. "I'm sorry to intrude," Eleanor said. "But I thought you should know. I found something else. Something I didn't tell the police yet." From her pocket, Eleanor produced a small key with a distinctive baseball-shaped head. Attached was a faded tag with handwritten numbers, 23, 16, 42. "It was hidden inside one of the championship medals," Eleanor explained. "I only noticed it because the weight felt off." Sophia's journalistic instincts kicked into high gear. "A locker combination?" Patricia gasped. "The high school. The boys' old lockers were never cleared out. The school sealed them, as a kind of memorial. What secrets had been locked away for 28 years? And why would someone preserve the key to find them in such an elaborate hiding place? As Sophia would soon discover, the baseball cards and locker contents were merely the first threads in a web of deception that stretched far beyond her brother's disappearance. A web that had ensnared the entire town of Millfield Valley. Thomas Reeves sat alone in his modest apartment, a glass of bourbon untouched before him, staring at the muted television broadcasting news of the bunker discovery. At 71, the former baseball coach's once imposing frame had withered, but his eyes still held the intensity that had driven the Millfield Wildcats to 3 state championships during his tenure. "It was only a matter of time," he muttered to the empty room. "The past always finds a way back." The phone had been ringing all evening. Former players, old colleagues, reporters sniffing for quotes from the brothers' legendary coach. He let them all go to voicemail. There was only one call he was waiting for, and when it finally came, The name on the caller ID sent a chill through him despite the summer heat. Sheriff Robert Thompson, retired. "They found the bunker, Tom," Thompson said without greeting. "Martinez is heading the investigation." "How bad is it?" "Bad enough. The cards were there. Notes, too. Jenkins kept everything." Thomas closed his eyes. Harold Jenkins, the reclusive collector who had owned the property before Eleanor. The man Thomas had paid handsomely to hide evidence. The man who had apparently been building an insurance policy all along. A knock at the door interrupted the call. Through the peephole, Thomas saw Sophia Reynolds, her expression set with determination. Beside her stood Eleanor Matthews, the farmer who had unearthed the past like a long-buried landmine. "I have to go," Thomas told Thompson. "They're here." When Thomas opened the door, Sophia didn't wait for an invitation. 28 years, she said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. 28 years of wondering. And all this time, you knew something. Didn't you, Coach? Thomas sagged against the doorframe, the weight of decades of silence suddenly too heavy to bear. "Come in," he said. "It's time you heard the truth." Inside, Thomas retrieved a dusty photo album from a locked cabinet. The first page showed the championship team, Jason and Michael, grinning in the center. He turned to a section in the back, hidden behind a false lining. Photographs not of baseball games, but of baseball cards. Hundreds of them. "Your brothers discovered something by accident," Thomas began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was running a counterfeiting operation. Vintage baseball cards. The market was booming in the early 90s, and I had connections to make perfect replicas. We're talking cards worth thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, each." Eleanor gasped. "The cards in the bunker," Thomas nodded. "Jason and Michael found my printing setup in a storage room at the school. They confronted me after the championship, said they were going to report it." His hands trembled as he turned another page in the album. "But there were others involved. Dangerous people. I told your brothers I needed time to shut everything down safely." "So you, what, helped them disappear?" Sophia's voice cracked. "Let everyone believe they were dead for 28 years. I convinced them their family could be in danger if they stayed," Thomas admitted. "Helped them create new identities. Sent them to Washington State. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I could dismantle the operation. But then things got complicated. People started asking questions I couldn't answer." Eleanor leaned forward. "The bunker. Jenkins built it to collect evidence against you?" Thomas nodded. "Harold was blackmailing me. Said it was his retirement plan. Every month for 20 years, I paid him to keep quiet." "And my brothers?" Sophia demanded. "Where are they now?" The former coach's eyes filled with tears. "I've been sending them updates, telling them it still wasn't safe to return, that their family had moved on. I intercepted their letters to you, made them believe you'd all relocated to protect yourselves." The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. After nearly 3 decades of mystery, the first piece of truth had emerged. But it would soon prove to be only the surface of a conspiracy that ran deeper than any of them imagined. What else had been hidden beneath the surface of Millfield Valley? And were Jason and Michael still alive, living under assumed identities, believing their family had abandoned them? The answers would shock even those who thought they knew the whole story. The hallways of Millfield Valley High School echoed with emptiness during summer break. Principal Georgia Williams led Sophia, Eleanor, and Detective Martinez through the familiar corridors, their footsteps reverberating against the worn linoleum floor. Display cases lined the walls, celebrating achievements of students past and present. One case, larger than the others, contained jerseys with the numbers 9 and 14, Jason's and Michael's, preserved behind glass like museum artifacts. "We've kept their lockers untouched," Principal Williams explained, her keys jingling as she led them toward the senior hallway. "Every principal since '93 has passed down the tradition. It became a kind of memorial." They stopped before 2 lockers, 23 and 24, marked with small brass plaques bearing the brothers' names. Yellow police tape now crossed both doors. Martinez had called ahead to secure the scene. "The combination only opens locker 23, Martinez said, examining the key Eleanor had found. "Teats, according to school records, that was Jason's." Sophia's hand trembled as she took the key from Martinez. "I should do it," she insisted. "They were my brothers." The lock turned with surprising ease after nearly 3 decades. Inside, the contents remained exactly as Jason had left them. Textbooks, notebooks, a worn baseball glove, a cassette Walkman. The scent of old paper and the faint ghost of teenage boy cologne wafted out. A time capsule of 1993. Martinez donned latex gloves and carefully removed each item, placing them on a plastic sheet spread across the floor. Nothing seemed unusual until he reached the back of the locker. There, taped to the interior wall, was a sealed envelope with "Insurance" written across it in block letters. "That's not Jason's handwriting," Sophia said immediately. "He had terrible penmanship. This is too neat." Inside the envelope, 3 baseball cards in protective sleeves, a key to a safe deposit box at Millfield Community Bank, and a handwritten list of names. At the top of the list, Coach Thomas Reeves, Sheriff Robert Thompson, Mayor William Foster, all connected by a single word: involved. "These cards look authentic to me," Martinez said, examining them carefully. "But Coach Reeves said he was counterfeiting cards." Eleanor leaned closer. "Unless these are the real ones. The ones they copied." Martinez bagged the evidence. "The bank's our next stop. That safe deposit box might tell us exactly what your brothers knew." At Millfield Community Bank, the manager led them to the safe deposit vault. Records showed the box hadn't been accessed since May 1993, just days before the brothers disappeared. The contents were sparse: a disposable camera with unused exposures, a cassette tape labeled "Proof," and a notebook filled with what appeared to be financial transactions: names, dates, amounts. Thousands of dollars changing hands. At the bottom of the last page, a chilling note in Michael's handwriting: "If anything happens to us, give this to Officer Martinez. No one else." "They knew," Sophia whispered. "They knew they were in danger." Martinez held up the cassette tape. "We need to hear what's on this." Back at the police station, they gathered around an ancient tape player borrowed from the evidence room. The recording was surprisingly clear. A conversation between Coach Reeves and another man whose voice Martinez immediately recognized as former Sheriff Thompson. "The kids know too much," Thompson's voice said. "We need to handle this permanently." Reeves's response sent a chill through the room. "No one's killing any kids. I've got a different solution." The tape continued, revealing a plan far more intricate than a simple counterfeiting operation. Baseball cards were just the beginning. The scheme involved money laundering, blackmail, and corruption that reached the highest levels of Millfield Valley leadership. "This is why they disappeared," Martinez said. "They weren't just protecting themselves. They were gathering evidence." As the tape played on, one question loomed larger than all others. If the brothers had collected this insurance policy, why hadn't they ever used it to come home? The answer would prove more heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. The manila envelope arrived at Eleanor's farmhouse on a Tuesday morning, delivered not by the regular mail carrier but left propped against her front door. No return address, no postmark. Just her name in block letters, similar to those on the envelope found in Jason's locker. Inside, a single sheet of paper with a message constructed from letters cut from magazines. "Stop digging or you'll be buried too." "I knew I should have been terrified," Eleanor later told investigators, "but honestly, it just made me more determined. Threats like this mean you're getting close to something important." Eleanor wasn't the only one receiving warnings. At her hotel, Sophia found a 1993 baseball card tucked under her door. The same brand her brothers had discovered were counterfeits. The face of the card had been burned away, leaving a blackened hole where the player's image should have been. Detective Martinez, too, discovered a warning. His police cruiser's window smashed, a baseball bat on the driver's seat with the words "Final Inning" carved into the wood. "Someone's scared," Martinez observed during their emergency meeting at the police station. "After 28 years, we're threatening to expose something they thought was safely buried." The investigation had now expanded beyond the brothers' disappearance. Martinez had brought in state police to help review the evidence from the bunker, the locker, and the safe deposit box. Forensics teams were processing fingerprints, analyzing handwriting, and tracing the origins of the baseball cards. "The counterfeiting operation was sophisticated," explained Agent Wilson from the State Bureau of Investigation. "High-quality printing, aging techniques to make new cards look vintage, even artificial wear added to increase authenticity. This wasn't some amateur operation. This was professional." Sophia, using her investigative journalism skills, had been making calls to baseball card experts and collectors who were active in the early 90s. "The market was exploding back then," she explained. "Cards that sold for hundreds were suddenly worth thousands. There was big money in it, enough to tempt people into illegal operations." Eleanor had been compiling a timeline on a Bowie whiteboard in Martinez's office, mapping out every known event from before the brothers' disappearance to the present day. Red string connected related events, mimicking the conspiracy board found in the bunker. "I keep coming back to this gap," Eleanor said, pointing to the timeline. 2 days before they vanished, Jason and Michael were seen talking to someone at the lake. Witnesses described a heated discussion, but no one could identify who they were talking to. Martinez nodded. "We need to find that person." As if on cue, the phone on Martinez's desk rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar Washington state number. "Detective Martinez," he answered, putting the call on speaker. A long pause followed, then a male voice, hesitant and distant. "I understand you're looking into the Reynolds brothers case." "Who is this?" Martinez demanded. Another pause. "Someone who knows they didn't just disappear. Someone who's been watching them for 28 years. The three exchanged startled glances. "Are they alive?" Sophia asked, her voice breaking. "Meet me at Millfield Lake. Midnight. The old boathouse." The line went dead. Was this a breakthrough or a trap? And if the mysterious caller had been watching the brothers for 28 years, what did that mean? Were Jason and Michael prisoners? Were they being threatened? Or was someone monitoring them from afar, making sure they never returned to Millfield Valley? As midnight approached, the answers seemed tantalizingly close, but so did the danger. The full moon cast silver ripples across Millfield Lake, illuminating the weathered boathouse where Jason and Michael had spent countless summer days before their disappearance. Now, at midnight, it stood as a silent witness to another pivotal moment in their story. Martinez insisted on taking precautions. 2 state police officers were positioned in the woods nearby. Sophia wore a wire. Eleanor, despite protests, refused to stay behind. "This is my discovery," she had insisted. "I need to see it through." They arrived 15 minutes early, approaching on foot along the shoreline to avoid being detected. The boathouse door creaked open at exactly midnight, as if the mysterious caller had been waiting just inside. The man who emerged was in his 60s, thin and weathered, with the cautious movements of someone accustomed to looking over his shoulder. "Detective Martinez," he acknowledged with a slight nod. "Ms. Reynolds, and you must be the farmer." "Who are you?" Martinez demanded. "Frank Miller. I worked security for Mayor Foster in the 90s. He gestured toward the boathouse. "Let's talk inside. What I have to show you shouldn't be seen by anyone else." The interior smelled of mildew and old wood. Miller flipped a switch, and a single bulb illuminated the space. On a table lay a leather portfolio that looked decades old. "I've been carrying this weight for 28 years, Miller said, his fingers tracing the edge of the portfolio. "Your brothers," he looked at Sophia. "They weren't just witnesses to a counterfeiting scheme. They stumbled onto something much bigger." He opened the portfolio to reveal documents, photographs, and a hand-drawn map. Mayor Foster wasn't just helping launder money from fake baseball cards. He was using his position to facilitate a land development scheme, buying properties through shell companies, rezoning them, then selling at massive profits. Martinez leaned closer, examining a photograph showing Foster, Sheriff Thompson, and Coach Reeves gathered around a table with men in expensive suits. The counterfeiting operation funded the initial property purchases, Miller continued. But once they had control of enough land, they planned to build a resort complex that would transform Millfield Valley and make them millions. "What does this have to do with my brothers?" Sophia asked. Miller's expression darkened. Jason and Michael accidentally photographed a meeting between Foster and the investors, serious people with connections to organized crime in Chicago. When they developed the film, they recognized what they had and confronted Coach Reeves, who they trusted. "But Reeves was involved," Eleanor said. Miller nodded. Reeves convinced them he was being forced to participate. Said he'd help them gather evidence to take to the authorities. But he was playing both sides, trying to protect the boys while also protecting himself. "The plan to send them away," Martinez said. "That was real?" "Yes," Miller confirmed. "But not for the reason Reeves told you. Foster and Thompson wanted the brothers eliminated permanently. Reeves convinced them he had a better solution. Make the boys disappear, but keep them alive as insurance. If anything happened to Reeves, he had arranged for evidence to be released, including proof of the brothers' location." "So they're alive?" Sophia's voice cracked with emotion. Miller pulled an envelope from the portfolio and handed it to her. Inside were 2 driver's licenses from Washington State with unfamiliar names but unmistakable faces, older versions of Jason and Michael Reynolds. "They live in Seattle," Miller said. "New names, new lives. They believe their family abandoned them. That's what Reeves told them to keep them away. He intercepted all communication, made them think returning to Millfield would put everyone in danger." "We need to bring them home," Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. "It's not that simple," Miller warned. "Foster may be dead, but some of the people involved in this are still very much alive and very powerful. That's why the threats started as soon as the bunker was found." As if to emphasize his point, a sharp crack echoed across the lake. Miller's body jerked, his eyes widening in shock as a red stain blossomed on his chest. "Sniper!" Martinez shouted, pushing everyone to the floor as more shots splintered the boathouse walls. In the chaos that followed, the rush for cover, the calls for backup, the desperate attempt to save Miller's life, one thing became clear. Someone was still willing to kill to keep the truth buried. But now they had names, addresses. After 28 years, Jason and Michael Reynolds might finally come home, if they survived long enough to reach them. "Frank Miller's dead," Martinez announced, his voice heavy with exhaustion. 3 days had passed since the boathouse shooting. The investigation had moved to a secure room at the state police headquarters, 30 miles from Millfield Valley. Evidence boards covered the walls. Armed officers stood guard outside. Eleanor and Sophia looked up from the documents they'd been reviewing, financial records from the 90s, property deeds, old town council minutes, anything that might connect to the conspiracy Miller had revealed before his death. "The shooter?" Sophia asked. "Professional job. No casings left behind. No witnesses." Martinez ran a hand over his face. "State Police Forensics is analyzing the bullet, but don't expect much." Eleanor pointed to her laptop screen. "I've been tracking the property purchases Miller mentioned. Look at this pattern." She turned the screen to show a map of Millfield Valley with certain parcels highlighted. Between 1990 and 1993, 14 key properties changed hands. The buyers appear to be different individuals and companies, but I found connections, same attorneys, similar shell company structures. "And all the properties form a continuous area around the lake," Sophia noted. Martinez nodded. "Perfect for the resort development Miller described." But here's the strange part, Eleanor continued. After the brothers disappeared, the purchases stopped. The existing properties were held for about 5 years, then sold off at a loss. The development never happened. Because without the brothers as leverage, the operation fell apart, Martinez theorized. Reeves had turned their disappearance into his insurance policy. No one could make a move without risking exposure. Sophia had been unusually quiet, staring at the driver's license photos Miller had provided. They look so different, she whispered. Jason would be 45 now. Michael, 44. I've missed their entire adult lives. Martinez's phone buzzed with a text message. The tech team got into Harold Jenkins's computer from the bunker. There's encrypted email correspondence going back 15 years. They're working on breaking the encryption now. Jenkins was blackmailing Reeves, Eleanor remembered, using the bunker evidence as leverage. But why build such an elaborate underground archive? Sophia wondered. Why not just keep the evidence in a safe deposit box? The answer came 3 hours later when the tech team decrypted Jenkins's emails. The correspondence weren't just Reeves, but a network of people connected to the original conspiracy, including 3 current town council members and a state senator who had grown up in Millfield Valley. Jenkins wasn't just blackmailing Reeves, Martinez said, scrolling through the emails. He was blackmailing everyone involved. The bunker was his life insurance, too elaborate to easily destroy, too hidden to find without knowing where to look. One email thread stood out. Messages between Jenkins and an anonymous account using the name Watcher NW. Though, messages contained updates about 2 men living in Seattle, employment changes, address changes, even health issues. This has to be about my brothers, Sophia said. Someone was monitoring them and reporting back to Jenkins. The most recent email, sent just 2 months before Jenkins's death, contained an alarming update. Subjects showing interest in family history. Jay researching Millfield Valley online. Possible risk of contact. They were trying to find their way back, Sophia realized. After all these years, Eleanor was examining the email metadata, the IP address for this Watcher NW account. We might be able to trace it. Martinez made a call to the FBI Cyber Division. Within an hour, they had a location, an apartment complex in Seattle, Washington. The resident, Thomas Wilson, a private investigator with connections to Chicago, the same city where Mayor Foster's organized crime associates had originated. We need to go to Seattle, Sophia insisted. Now, before they move my brothers or... She couldn't finish the thought. I've already arranged for a FBI team in Seattle to secure the area, Martinez said. But we need to be smart about this. If your brothers have been living under new identities for 28 years, we can't just burst in and announce they've been living a lie. As they prepared for the journey to Seattle, a new email arrived from the tech team. They had found something else on Jenkins's computer. A video file recorded 6 months before his death. The thumbnail showed Jenkins sitting before the camera, looking directly into the lens. I made this recording as my final insurance policy, Jenkins began. If you're watching this, I'm likely dead, and the truth about Jason and Michael Reynolds is about to come out. But there's one more secret no one knows. Not even Thomas Reeves. The revelation that followed would change everything they thought they knew about the case. Rain fell in steady sheets across Seattle's Pike Place Market as Eleanor, Sophia, and Martinez conducted surveillance from a cafe across the street. According to their intelligence, David Wilson and James Wilson, the assumed identities of Michael and Jason Reynolds, worked at a specialty book and collectibles shop tucked between a fishmonger and a flower stand. Are you sure you're ready for this? Martinez asked Sophia, who hadn't touched her coffee, her eyes fixed on the shop entrance. I've been ready for 28 years, she replied. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the small microphone hidden beneath her jacket. A precaution Martinez had insisted upon. The plan was simple but delicate. Sophia would enter alone, posing as a customer. She would observe, confirm identities, but make no contact until they were certain no one was watching the brothers. FBI agents were positioned throughout the market, monitoring for any sign of Thomas Wilson, the private investigator who had been reporting on the brothers for years. Remember, Martinez cautioned, they believe their family abandoned them. They've been living different lives for longer than they lived as Jason and Michael. This won't be easy for anyone. At precisely 2:15 p.m., Sophia took a deep breath and crossed the rain-slicked street. The bell above the shop door announced her entrance. Inside, the smell of old books and polished wood created an atmosphere of quiet sophistication. Display cases lined the walls, containing rare first editions, vintage collectibles, and, Sophia's breath caught, a section dedicated to baseball memorabilia. Behind the counter stood a man in his mid-40s, his dark hair showing traces of gray at the temples. He looked up from his inventory clipboard, a smile forming on his face. The same smile Sophia remembered from her childhood, though now set in a more mature face. "Welcome to Wilson Collections," Michael said, unaware he was addressing his sister. "Anything I can help you find today?" Sophia struggled to find her voice. "I'm just browsing," she managed. "You have a beautiful shop." "Thank you," Michael replied. "My brother and I have run it for almost 20 years now. He handles the books. I handle the sports memorabilia. Are you interested in either?" "Both, actually," Sophia said, moving closer to the counter. "I've always been fascinated by how objects carry stories, how they connect us to the past." A door at the back of the shop opened, and a taller man emerged carrying a stack of leather-bound volumes. Jason. Older, more serious-looking, but unmistakably her brother. "David," Jason called, using Michael's assumed name. "The Carter estate books just arrived." First editions, just like he claimed. The brothers worked in easy synchronicity, the result of decades spent building a life and business together. They conversed about inventory, upcoming auctions, a leak in Jason's apartment that had been fixed that morning. Ordinary details of ordinary lives. Lives built on a foundation of lies. Sophia moved through the shop, examining items while listening to her brother's voices. In a display case near the register, something caught her eye. A framed photograph of the two men standing on a fishing boat, holding up their catch. Their smiles, their posture side by side, it mirrored almost exactly the last known photograph of Jason and Michael taken at the championship parade in 1993. "That was taken on my 40th birthday," Michael explained, noticing her interest. "First time either of us had been deep-sea fishing." "You look happy," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. "We've built a good life," Michael replied. Then, more quietly, "Even with the ghosts we carry." Sophia couldn't hold back any longer. What if those ghosts weren't what you thought they were? What if everything you believed about your past was a lie told to keep you away from home? Michael's expression shifted from confusion to wariness. "Excuse me." "Millfield Valley," Sophia said. "The championship game. May 15, 1993. The color drained from Michael's face. Jason, hearing the exchange, moved quickly to his brother's side. "Who are you?" Jason demanded. Sophia looked between them, tears welling in her eyes. "My name is Sophia Reynolds. I'm your sister, and everything you've been told about why you had to leave home was a lie." The brothers exchanged a glance that contained decades of shared secrets and pain. Outside the window, Martinez and Eleanor watched, knowing that this moment of truth would either heal wounds nearly 3 decades old or tear them open even wider. The reunion that followed would be just the beginning of a journey home fraught with danger, revelation, and the possibility of justice long delayed. Coach Thomas Reeves sat in the interview room at the state police headquarters, his weathered hands folded on the metal table before him. At 71, he looked every bit his age under the harsh fluorescent lighting. Across from him sat Detective Martinez and 2 FBI agents. Behind the one-way glass, Eleanor watched alongside Sophia and her newly reunited brothers. "It's surreal," Jason whispered, watching his former coach through the glass. For 28 years, his letters were our only connection to Millfield Valley. He told us everyone had moved away after the threats, that staying in Seattle was the only way to keep everyone safe. "He sent Christmas cards," Michael added. "Updates about people from town, all lies." On the table in the interview room lay the evidence recovered from Harold Jenkins' bunker, the high school locker, and the safe deposit box. Most damning were the recorded phone conversations between Reeves and the various conspirators, preserved by Jenkins as his insurance policy. "We know everything, Thomas," Martinez said, his voice calm but firm. "The counterfeiting operation, the land development scheme, Mayor Foster's connections to organized crime, your role in making the Reynolds brothers disappear." Reeves stared at his hands. "You don't know everything." "Then tell us." Martinez pushed a legal pad toward him. "This is your chance to set the record straight." Reeves looked up, his eyes finding the one-way glass, as if he could see through to the brothers beyond. "I saved those boys," he insisted. "Foster and Thompson wanted them eliminated. I convinced them there was another way, that making them disappear would be enough." "You manipulated them," Martinez countered. "Kept them away from their family for 28 years. Intercepted their communications. Let their parents die believing they might never know what happened to their sons." "You don't understand the kind of people we were dealing with," Reeves said. "Chicago outfit. They didn't leave loose ends. The baseball card operation was just the beginning. The real money was in the land development. Millions of dollars. Political connections. The kind of operation you don't walk away from." "Frank Miller tried to tell us before he was killed," Martinez said. "Now it's your turn." Reeves's shoulders slumped. "Harold Jenkins was my cousin. He agreed to build the bunker to preserve evidence in case anything happened to me or the boys. It was supposed to be our shared insurance policy. But then Harold got greedy, started blackmailing everyone involved." In the observation room, Eleanor frowned. "That matches what we found in Jenkins' emails. But what about the video confession he left behind?" On cue, Martinez slid a tablet across the table and played Jenkins' final recording. "There's one more secret no one knows, not even Thomas Reeves." Jenkins's voice filled the room. "The counterfeiting operation never ended. It just changed hands. After the Reynolds boys disappeared, Sheriff Thompson took control. The money funded his campaigns for state office and silenced anyone who asked too many questions about the missing boys. I've been collecting evidence for years, waiting for the right moment to expose everything." Reeves watched the video, his expression shifting from surprise to anger. "That lying bastard! He told me the operation had been shut down. All these years?" "Thompson is still alive," Martinez noted, "living comfortably in Florida on what we now believe are the proceeds from decades of criminal activity." "And the others?" Reeves asked. "We've identified 17 people connected to the conspiracy," Martinez said. 5 are deceased. The rest will face justice, including you, Coach." Reeves nodded slowly, accepting his fate. "I want to speak to the brothers." Behind the glass, Jason and Michael exchanged a look. After a moment's hesitation, they nodded to Martinez. When they entered the interview room, Reeves stood, tears welling in his eyes. "You boys," he whispered. "You look good." "We're not boys anymore," Jason said coldly. "And we've spent most of our lives living a lie because of you." "I thought I was protecting you," Reeves insisted. "By telling us our family had abandoned us?" Michael's voice cracked with emotion. "By making us believe our parents died thinking we'd run away? By robbing us of 28 years with our sister?" Reeves had no answer for this. He simply sat, the weight of his deception finally crushing him. "There's something you should know," he said finally. "Your parents never stopped looking for you. Every year, on the anniversary of your disappearance, they would sit on the porch all night with the lights on, hoping you'd find your way home. Your father's last words before he died were your names." The revelation broke something open in the brothers. Decades of suppressed grief poured out as they realized the depth of what had been stolen from them. Not just years, but the knowledge that they had always been loved, always been missed, always been waited for. As Reeves was led away in handcuffs, the final piece of the puzzle still remained. Who had killed Frank Miller at the boathouse? And who else might still be targeting the brothers now that they had returned to reclaim their true identities? The answer would lead to the highest levels of power and reveal the darkest secret of Millfield Valley. The caravan of vehicles rolled slowly down Main Street, passing beneath banners announcing the annual Millfield Memorial Baseball Tournament, the event established years ago to honor the memory of the missing brothers. Now, those same brothers watched from the back seat of Martinez's unmarked car as their hometown came into view for the first time in nearly 3 decades. "Everything looks smaller," Jason observed. "Except the water tower. That looks exactly the same." Michael pointed to the high school as they passed. "Remember how we used to race each other home after practice, taking that shortcut through Old Man Wilson's orchard?" "I remember," Jason said. Then, more soberly, "Mom and Dad are really buried here?" Sophia reached across to squeeze her brother's hand. "In the cemetery behind the church. I thought we might visit them tomorrow, after things settle down." The convoy's destination was the Millfield Valley Community Center, where a press conference had been hastily arranged. Word had spread quickly about the brothers' return. National media outlets had descended on the small town. Crowds lined the streets, some holding welcome home signs, others simply watching in stunned disbelief as the community's greatest mystery neared resolution. Inside the community center, Eleanor watched from the side of the stage as Sophia helped her brothers prepare for their public debut. The FBI had advised against the press conference until all suspects in the conspiracy were apprehended, but the brothers had insisted. "We've been hidden for 28 years, Jason had said. "We won't spend another day in the shadows." Former Sheriff Thompson had been arrested at his Florida golf resort that morning. 3 town council members implicated in Jenkins' files were in custody. Even Thomas Wilson, the private investigator who had monitored the brothers in Seattle, was being held as a material witness. But one key player remained at large: State Senator William Clark, who had been Mayor Foster's protege in the early 90s and who, according to Jenkins's records, had continued the counterfeiting operation after Foster's death. Martinez joined Eleanor at the side of the stage. "Security teams are in place," he assured her. "Every entrance covered. Snipers on the roof as a precaution." Eleanor nodded, her eyes scanning the crowd gathering in the hall. "I still can't believe how all this started with a drought and a well that needed deepening." Martinez smiled. "Sometimes the truth needs a little help finding its way to the surface." The press conference began with a statement from the FBI special agent in charge, outlining the broad strokes of the conspiracy that had forced the brothers into hiding. Martinez followed, explaining how the discovery of the bunker had reignited the investigation. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Jason and Michael Reynolds approached the podium, flanked by their sister. The room fell silent. For many long-time Millfield residents, it was like seeing ghosts materialize before their eyes. "My name is Jason Reynolds," Jason began. 28 years ago, my brother Michael and I disappeared from Millfield Valley. Today, we want to tell you what really happened and why we've come home." As the brothers shared their story, how they had stumbled upon the counterfeiting operation, been manipulated into hiding by Coach Reeves, and lived for decades believing their family had abandoned them, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. They spoke of building new lives in Seattle, of the shock of learning the truth, and of the joy and pain of reunion with their sister. "We've lost so much time," Michael said toward the end. "Time with our parents that we can never get back. But we're home now, and we intend to stay." From the back of the hall, a lone figure slipped out a side door unnoticed by security. A distinguished man in an expensive suit whose face had been prominently displayed in Jenkins's files. Senator Clark had risked attending the press conference himself, perhaps unable to resist witnessing the fallout of a conspiracy he had helped maintain for decades. Eleanor, positioned near that exit, noticed his departure. Without hesitation, she followed, sending a quick text to Martinez as she pushed through the door into a service corridor. She caught a glimpse of Clark turning a corner ahead. Quickening her pace, she rounded the same corner and found herself facing the senator, a pistol steady in his hand. "Ms. Matthews," Clark said, with the practiced calm of a career politician, "I've been wanting to meet the farmer who started unraveling everything we built." Eleanor stood her ground. "It was already unraveling, Senator. Jenkins made sure of that with his insurance policy." "Harold was a fool," Clark sneered. "He thought evidence in a bunker would protect him. Look how that worked out." "You arranged his death," Eleanor realized. "Made it look like natural causes." Clark smiled thinly. "Just like I arranged for Frank Miller to have an unfortunate accident at the boathouse. Just like I'll arrange for a tragic event to occur at this press conference. Sometimes old buildings have gas leaks, you know. Terrible tragedies." Eleanor's blood ran cold as she understood the implication. "You've planted a bomb." "The timer's already running," Clark confirmed. "In about 4 minutes, the Reynolds brothers' return will become a footnote in a much bigger tragedy. And you'll be found as a casualty in the hallway, another victim of the explosion." But Clark had made a critical error in his planning. The service corridor where they stood had been wired with the security cameras Martinez had insisted upon. Cameras that were being monitored by FBI agents who had now heard every word of Clark's confession. Before Clark could react, the door behind him burst open. Martinez and 2 FBI agents rushed in, weapons drawn. "Drop the gun, Senator." What happened next would later be pieced together from the security footage and witness statements. Clark, realizing he was cornered, attempted to use Eleanor as a human shield. In the struggle, his gun discharged, the bullet grazing Eleanor's arm before embedding itself in the wall. Martinez tackled Clark to the ground as the FBI agents secured the weapon. "The bomb!" Eleanor gasped, clutching her bleeding arm. "He said there's a bomb in the community center." With less than 3 minutes until detonation, the evacuation began. Security teams cleared the building with remarkable efficiency, prioritizing the brothers and Sophia. The FBI's bomb squad located the device beneath the stage where the Reynolds family had been standing, a sophisticated explosive that would have killed dozens and injured hundreds more. With just 37 seconds to spare, the device was disarmed. Senator Clark, the last remaining architect of the conspiracy that had stolen 28 years from the Reynolds brothers, was led away in handcuffs, his political career and freedom finished. As ambulance personnel treated Eleanor's wound outside the community center, the Reynolds siblings approached her. "You saved everyone in that building," Jason said. "Again?" Eleanor shook her head. "I just followed a suspicious man out a door. You 3 are the real story here." Sophia smiled. "I think Millfield Valley has room for both stories now." As news cameras captured the moment, the brothers each took one of Eleanor's hands in theirs, a gesture of gratitude that would become the iconic image associated with the case that came to be known as the Millfield Miracle. The truth, buried for so long, had finally reached the surface, and with it came the chance for healing, not just for the Reynolds family, but for an entire community built on secrets too heavy to bear. 1 year later, the drought that had gripped Millfield Valley was a distant memory. Summer rains had restored the landscape to vibrant green. On Eleanor Matthews's farm, the well that had started everything now supplied water to thriving organic crops, and to the new memorial garden established in honor of Patricia and Robert Reynolds. Eleanor walked among the raised beds, clipboard in hand, as she checked the progress of her latest plantings. The farm had become something of a tourist attraction over the past year, with visitors from across the country coming to see where the famous bunker had been discovered. Rather than fighting the attention, Eleanor had embraced it, using the opportunity to promote sustainable farming practices while telling the story of how an unexpected discovery had changed so many lives. "The tour bus is here," called a familiar voice. Michael Reynolds emerged from the farmhouse, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. Since returning to Millfield, he had become Eleanor's business partner, investing his share of the substantial civil settlement from the state in expanding the farm's operations. "Thanks," Eleanor said, taking the offered drink. "How many today?" "About 30, Michael replied. "Mostly retirees from Chicago. Jason's already giving them the abbreviated version of the bunker tour." In the distance, they could see Jason leading a group toward the site where the bunker had been discovered. Now declared a historical landmark, the entrance had been preserved with a protective structure, allowing visitors to peer down into the chamber that had housed the evidence for so many years. Jason, who had published a best-selling memoir about the brothers' experience, had found his voice as a public speaker, traveling the country to talk about resilience and reconciliation. "Sophia called this morning," Michael said. "The documentary just got picked up by one of the streaming services. They'll start filming next month." Eleanor smiled. Sophia Reynolds's investigative skills had found their perfect expression in the comprehensive reporting she'd done on her brother's case. The podcast series she'd produced had broken download records and earned her a prestigious journalism award. Now, with a documentary in the works, she was bringing the story to an even wider audience. "And how's your mother's house coming?" "Along?" Eleanor asked. After the brothers' return, they had decided to renovate their childhood home rather than sell it, transforming it into a gathering place for the extended family they'd been rediscovering. "Almost finished," Michael said. "The contractor thinks we'll be done by the anniversary next month." The anniversary. 1 year since the press conference where Senator Clark had nearly succeeded in his desperate attempt to silence the truth forever. Clark was now serving multiple life sentences, along with former Sheriff Thompson and several others implicated in the conspiracy. Coach Reeves, having cooperated fully with investigators and shown genuine remorse, had received a reduced sentence that would likely still mean he would spend his remaining years in prison. "Dirty? Sometimes I still can't believe how it all unfolded," Eleanor said. "If there hadn't been a drought, if I hadn't needed a deeper well." Michael shook his head. "I used to think that way too, but Jason and I have talked about this a lot. The truth was always going to find its way out eventually. Jenkins made sure of that with his insurance policy. You were just the right person, in the right place, with enough courage to follow where it led." From the memorial garden came the sound of laughter. Jason was entertaining the tour group with the story of how Eleanor had followed Senator Clark out of the community center, leading to his capture and the discovery of the bomb. The story had become somewhat legendary in its retelling, though Eleanor always insisted her role had been more accidental than heroic. As they walked toward the tour group, Eleanor reflected on how thoroughly the case had transformed Millfield Valley. The town had faced its darkest secrets and emerged stronger. The annual baseball tournament, once a somber memorial to missing sons, had become a celebration of homecoming and truth. The high school's history curriculum now included a unit on civic responsibility, using the case as an object lesson in how corruption can infect even the most seemingly wholesome communities. "Ready for your part?" Michael asked as they approached the group. Eleanor nodded. This was her favorite moment of the tour, when she and the Reynolds siblings together told the story of that first look inside the bunker, the moment when decades of secrets began to unravel. It was a story about loss and lies, yes, but also about persistence, reunion, and the power of truth to heal even the deepest wounds. As she began to speak, Eleanor caught sight of Sophia's car coming up the driveway, right on schedule. Soon, all 3 Reynolds siblings would be together again, continuing to rebuild the connections that had been severed for 28 years. And Eleanor, who had come to Millfield Valley seeking only a quiet place to farm, had instead found something far more valuable. A reminder that buried secrets don't stay buried forever, and that truth, like water, will always find a way to reach the surface. If this story left you as impacted as it did me, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and comment your opinion below. Each comment is like a new piece that can help unravel other mysteries like this one.